My ex-wife's affair wasn't the worst part. What came after was. I always thought the worst thing a partner could do was cheat. Betray you. Make you feel like the biggest fool alive. But I was wrong. I learned that the real horror comes after the cheating. When you start pulling at threads. When you realize the lies went deeper than you ever imagined. And sometimes the person you trusted most was capable of things you wouldn't even see in your nightmares. I found out about the affair on a Wednesday afternoon. I remember because it was raining and I had taken the day off. I was making coffee when I saw her phone buzz on the counter. A message preview lit up the screen. "Can't wait to see you tonight, babe." My stomach dropped. I didn't read the rest right away. I stood there frozen. The kettle whistled. My hand shook as I reached to turn it off. That night I pretended everything was normal. I kissed her cheek when she came home late, smelling of a cologne I didn't recognize. My mind screamed but my lips curved into a smile. I told myself I needed to know more before I confronted her. I needed proof. I started searching. I went through phone bills, email accounts, old texts. I even created a fake profile to follow the guy I suspected. Each piece I found made the puzzle clearer and uglier. They'd been seeing each other for months. Hotel receipts, secret dinners. A second phone I found hidden in the back of her closet. But here's where it gets twisted. One night, I tracked her location using an app she didn't know I had. She went to a suburban neighborhood I'd never seen before. She stayed there for 3 hours. I parked down the street and waited. When she finally came out, she wasn't alone. She was carrying a small bag and a toddler. A little boy, maybe 2 years old, with the same dark hair as me. I felt the world tilt. She put him in the car seat like it was second nature. Like she'd done it 100 times. I followed her home, heart hammering so hard I thought I'd pass out. I watched from my car as she tucked the boy into our guest room. The same room we'd once painted together, thinking it would be a nursery someday. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up staring at the ceiling, listening to her move around the house. Listening to a baby monitor I never knew existed crackle with the sound of a child's breathing. The next morning she acted like nothing had happened. Made me coffee. Kissed my forehead. I felt like I was in a stranger's house. I looked at her and saw a mask and behind it someone I didn't know. I asked about the boy. She froze. "Who is he?" I asked again. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "He's yours." My mind couldn't process it. We'd been trying for years. She cried every time the test came back negative. We'd fought over IVF. Over adoption. Over her biological clock. And now she was telling me we had a child I'd never met? She said she'd used a surrogate. A private arrangement. She said she'd been too scared to tell me in case something went wrong. That she wanted it to be a surprise. That she was waiting for the right time. I didn't believe her. I asked why she brought him home now. Why hide him for 2 years? She started crying but the tears felt off. Practiced. Like she'd rehearsed them in the mirror. I decided to get a paternity test. I swabbed the boy's cheek while she was out of the room, hands shaking so bad I almost dropped the kit. I sent it off the next morning. That week was the longest of my life. She kept up appearances, acting like everything was fine. Cooking dinner. Watching movies with me. Asking about my day. I played along but inside I was unraveling. The results came in on a Tuesday. I opened the envelope in my car. My breath caught when I read the first line. Probability of paternity, 0%. The boy wasn't mine. My hands went cold. I couldn't think straight. The walls of the car felt like they were closing in. I went back inside numb. She was feeding him breakfast, smiling and laughing like a perfect mom. I felt sick watching her. I told her I knew. She dropped the spoon. The boy started crying. She looked at me with wide, tearless eyes. She whispered, "You weren't supposed to find out." That was the moment I realized she'd planned to pass him off as mine. She'd orchestrated everything, the affair, the hidden child, the story about the surrogate. She wanted to keep both lives going. She wanted to tie me to her forever with a child that wasn't mine. I left that night. I stayed at a friend's house. I thought about divorce. About lawyers. About what this would do to my family. But then the text started. She sent dozens begging me to come home. Telling me I was overreacting. Promising explanations that never made sense. One message stuck with me: "If you leave, you'll regret it." That didn't sound like a plea. It sounded like a threat. I called the guy she'd been seeing. He answered on the second ring. I told him who I was. He went quiet. Then he said something I'll never forget. "She told me you were dead." My blood ran cold. He said she'd told him her husband had died 2 years ago. That's why they could be together. That's why she never let him come to our house. I hung up without saying another word. Everything started clicking into place. The lies, the secrecy, the weird gaps in her stories. But I still didn't know how far it went. Or what else she was hiding. I decided to go back to the house while she was out. I needed to find answers. I needed to know who I was really married to. I stepped into the guest room first. The boy was gone. The crib was empty. The closet was open, clothes missing. A wave of dread crashed over me. I tore through the house, searching every room. I found a locked drawer in her office. I pried it open with a screwdriver. Inside were documents I couldn't believe. Fake IDs, birth certificates with different names, credit cards I'd never seen. A passport in her maiden name with recent stamps to countries I didn't even know she'd visited. My hands were shaking so badly the papers slipped through my fingers. She'd been living multiple lives. There were photos too. Of her with other men. Different cities. Different hairstyles. Different stories. I felt like I was going to throw up. Then I heard the front door open. Her voice floated through the hall, sweet and casual. "Honey, I'm home." I grabbed the papers and stuffed them in my jacket. I slipped out the back door as she came into the kitchen. I heard her humming to herself. I got in my car and drove for hours. No destination. Just the open road and the pounding of my heart. That night, I checked into a motel under a fake name. I couldn't go to my friends or family. She knew where they lived. I couldn't risk her finding me. I started piecing together the timeline. The affair. The pregnancy lie. The boy. The other men. The fake documents. Each new detail made me feel like I was drowning. And then I realized something worse. If she'd gone this far to keep her secret, what would she do now that I knew? I barely slept that first night in the motel. Every noise outside made me jump. Every car pulling into the lot felt like it was her, coming to finish what she'd started. I kept the papers from her locked drawer spread across the bed. The faces, the names, the dates, all proof of a life I never really knew. I needed help. But I didn't know who I could trust. I called my brother in the morning. Told him I needed to meet somewhere public. We picked a diner halfway between our towns. I sat in a corner booth, scanning the door every few seconds until he walked in. He looked shocked when he saw me. I must have looked like a ghost. I told him everything. From the affair to the boy to the fake documents. He listened without interrupting, eyes wide. When I finished, he just said, "Jesus Christ, man." I handed him copies of what I'd found. Told him if anything happened to me, he needed to give them to the police. He tried to laugh it off, said I was being paranoid. But I saw it in his eyes, he believed me. The next few days were a blur of paranoia. I checked out of the motel and started sleeping in my car, moving every night. I used cash only, left my phone off or in airplane mode. I knew she could track me if she wanted to. Then one night, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. No subject. Just 3 words, "I found you." My heart nearly stopped. I started getting voicemails too. She sounded calm, almost cheerful. Asking me to come home so we could talk. So we could be a family again. Her tone was off, like nothing had happened. Like I'd just gone on a quick work trip. One message sent chills down my spine. "Remember our wedding vows? We said forever." I meant it. I realized then that this wasn't just desperation. It was obsession. I reached out to a lawyer, explained the situation. He told me to file for divorce immediately to get a restraining order. But I knew she'd see that coming. And if she thought I was cornering her, I didn't know what she might do. So I came up with a plan. I contacted the guy she'd been seeing again. The one she told I was dead. I asked him to meet me. At first he refused, he thought I was messing with him. But after I sent him a photo of me holding today's newspaper, he agreed. We met in a coffee shop. He was younger than me, early 30s. Looked nervous, kept glancing around. I showed him the papers. The photos. The fake IDs. His hands trembled as he flipped through them. "She told me you were a monster," he said quietly. "She said you beat her. That you threatened to kill her if she ever left." I laughed, but it sounded hollow even to me. I told him the truth. Or as much of it as I could. By the end he looked like he might throw up. He said she drained his savings. That she was always asking for money, promising she was about to get a divorce, that they'd start a new life together. I asked him about the boy. He said he'd never seen him. Didn't even know he existed. That's when I realized, the child might not even be hers. Or he might be, but I had no idea where he really came from. We agreed to stay in touch. To share anything new we learned. We exchanged burner numbers. It felt surreal, like forming an alliance in a spy movie. But I didn't know what else to do. The next morning I checked my bank account. Thousands were missing. Transfers I didn't authorize. Credit cards maxed out. I called the bank, but they told me the charges were from accounts in my name. She had all my passwords, knew all my security questions. That was when panic set in. I realized she could destroy me without even touching me. Financially, legally, emotionally. I went to the police. Gave them copies of the documents. Explained everything. The officer looked skeptical but said they'd open a case. That night I stayed with my brother. We barricaded the door. I slept with a baseball bat by the bed. Every creak of the house made my chest tighten. At 3 a.m. I heard my phone buzzing. It was a video message from an unknown number. I almost didn't watch it, but curiosity got the better of me. It was her, sitting in our kitchen, the boy on her lap. She was stroking his hair, humming softly. Then she looked straight into the camera. "You're missing out on this," she said, voice soft as silk. "He misses you. I miss you. Come home." Then she smiled. A slow, cold smile that didn't reach her eyes. I ended the video and threw my phone across the room. It shattered against the wall. The next day the guy I'd met texted me. She contacted me too. Said you were dangerous. That you'd threatened her. That you were coming for both of us. He sounded terrified. I knew then that she was setting me up. She was telling different stories to different people, turning them against me. If she went to the police first with her lies, it'd be my word against hers. And she was good at lies. I had to act. I went back to the house in the middle of the day. I knew she'd be at work. I wore gloves, a hat pulled low. I took every document, every photo, every piece of evidence I could find. I packed it into a duffel bag. Then I stood in the living room for a moment, looking at the photos on the wall. The wedding picture. The vacations. The happy memories that felt fake now. I heard a car pull into the driveway. My stomach dropped. I ran out the back, cutting through neighbors' yards until I reached the street where I'd parked. I looked back once and saw her standing in the doorway, scanning the yard like she knew I was there. I drove straight to my lawyer's office and gave him everything. He promised to get a restraining order filed that day. He said it might take a few days to process, but I'd done the right thing. That night, I slept in my car again. I kept the duffel bag in the trunk. I knew it was the only thing keeping me safe. The next morning, I woke up to a missed call from my boss. When I called back, he sounded cold. He said HR had gotten a report about domestic abuse allegations. That they were putting me on leave until it was investigated. My world was unraveling faster than I could hold it together. I tried to call the guy again, but his number was disconnected. I wondered if she'd gotten to him. Or if he'd gone underground like I had. Everywhere I turned, doors were closing. My accounts were frozen. My name was being dragged through the mud. And there was nothing I could do to stop it. I started thinking about leaving town. About disappearing. Starting over somewhere far away. But then I thought of the boy. Where was he? Was he safe? Was he even hers? I couldn't shake the image of him asleep in the crib, small and innocent. I knew I couldn't leave without knowing he was okay. So I started digging into adoption records. Hospital birth records. Anything I could find. I called every number I could think of, pretending to be a social worker, a lawyer, a relative. Most places stonewalled me. But then one clerk slipped up. Told me there was no birth record matching his name or birth date at any local hospital. That the ID she'd used for his medical appointments didn't exist. I felt like the floor had fallen out from under me. Who was this child? Where had she gotten him? And what was she planning to do now that I knew? I spent the next 2 days in a daze, making call after call, searching records, chasing any lead that could tell me who the boy really was. Every dead end made my thoughts spiral darker. What if he was kidnapped? What if I was sitting on evidence of something far worse than fraud? My brother tried to talk sense into me, told me to leave it alone. But I couldn't. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the kid's face and I heard her voice saying, "You're missing out on this." Then I got a call from an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me pick up. A woman's voice said, "Is this Mr. Carter? I need to talk to you about a missing child." My chest clenched so hard I thought I'd black out. She told me she was from a private investigator's office hired by a woman whose grandson had been missing for over a year. She said the grandmother had been searching nonstop, and someone had recently sent her a tip about a child matching her grandson's description. A tip with my name attached. My first thought was that she'd planted the tip herself to frame me. But the investigator sounded desperate, not accusing. She asked if I'd seen a child who looked like the boy in the photo she emailed me. It was him. Same dark hair. Same eyes. But in the photo he looked younger. Happier. And he was with a woman I'd never seen before. The PI told me the grandmother's daughter, the boy's mother, had died unexpectedly and the boy vanished soon after. Police had been searching but had no leads. Until now. I felt sick. I told her everything. About the affair, the lies, the night I saw my wife with the child, the paternity test. Everything. My voice cracked as I admitted I had no idea where he was now. She told me she'd contact the authorities, that they'd reach out. She asked me to stay somewhere safe. I hung up and collapsed onto the motel bed, the weight of everything pressing down like concrete. The boy wasn't mine. He wasn't hers. He was someone else's stolen child. Then the text started again. She knew. "Wherever you are, come back. Now. You have something that belongs to me." I stared at the screen. My hands were ice. She was slipping. Her words were frantic, not calculated. I realized she thought I'd taken the boy with me when I left. That night, I heard someone trying the motel doorknob. Slow, deliberate clicks. I held my breath. Watched the shadow move under the crack of the door. Then silence. Then footsteps fading into the parking lot. I packed my things in seconds and ran out the back, heart beating out of my chest. I didn't look back until I was miles away. The next morning, the police called. They'd found her. Or rather, they'd found the boy alone in a different motel room she'd rented under yet another fake name. He was unharmed but terrified, clinging to a stuffed bear. They picked her up hours later. She didn't resist. I don't know what expression I expected her to have when they showed me her mugshot online, but the blank, almost bored look sent a chill through me. Like none of this really mattered to her. Like she'd already moved on in her mind. I gave my statement to the police. I handed over every document, every photo, every text. The authorities confirmed the boy was the missing grandson. His grandmother flew in that week. The reunion made headlines. I watched the news footage from a cheap hotel room 2 states away, tears streaming down my face. I should have felt relief. But all I felt was empty. I filed for divorce the same day they charged her with multiple felonies: fraud, kidnapping, identity theft. They told me it was one of the most elaborate personal scams they'd ever seen. The lead detective said she'd been running cons like this for nearly a decade in different cities under different names. She never contacted me again. But the damage was done. My finances were wrecked. My reputation at work was shot. I eventually lost my job when the HR investigation dragged on too long. I moved back in with my brother for a while. Every knock at the door made me jump. Every unknown number on my phone made my stomach twist. I started therapy. My therapist said I had PTSD. I didn't argue. The night terrors, the paranoia, the constant fear, they felt like permanent parts of me now. But I kept reminding myself, the boy was safe. That's what mattered. He was back with family who loved him, who would protect him, who'd never let him be a pawn in someone's twisted game again. The guy she'd been seeing texted me once more weeks later. Just one line: "I'm sorry for everything. I hope you find peace." I didn't reply. I don't know if I believe in closure anymore. There's no neat bow to tie on a story like this. But I've started building a new life. A simpler one. I found a job far from where it all happened. I changed my number. I don't date. I don't even think about it. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't seen that text on her phone. If I'd stayed blind to it all. But then I think of the boy. And I know I'd do it all over again if it meant he was safe. This experience taught me something I wish I didn't know. That monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they smile. Sometimes they kiss you goodnight. Sometimes you share a bed with them for years and never see what they really are. But it also taught me something else. I learned that the truth will claw its way to the surface, no matter how deep someone tries to bury it. And when it does, it can burn everything down, but sometimes that's the only way to start over. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next shocking story. You won't believe what's coming.